This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to the General Services Committee to order. Today is October the 26th, 2022, and according to the clock on the wall, it's 4:30. And so we'll start with roll call
Chairman Oropesa,
here.
Vice Chair Moore.
Here.
Council Member Halverson. Here. Council Member Sanchez.
I think that's okay, thank you. Welcome everybody that's present and anybody that is joining us online. Welcome, and for those that are present, if we can make sure that everybody signs the sign-in sheet. And then we'll start with the approval of the minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Approval of the agenda. And minutes, if you want to throw the minutes in there as well.
We make an amended, do we make an amendment to agenda first?
Yes. Or.
Well, let's go with the approval of the agenda because we are going to have to change the
Agenda, that's why, and I didn't know if we
Okay.
did them at the same time. So I'd like to make a motion
to approve the agenda
agenda with necessary corrections.
with the corrections that you're going to be making, removing.
Removing, I'd like to make, do I make a motion?
Yep.
To remove the action item number 2, consideration approval of updated fee structures for both solid waste collections and the Roswell Municipal Landfill until further notice, until we have taken care of the CPI.
We have a motion by Councilor Moore.
Second.
Second by Councilor Halverson. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. I forgot
Those opposed,
the minutes.
motion
You can do that separate. Okay.
motion carried. So we'll accepting the agenda and removing action item number 2 for the later date.
I'd like to make a motion to, Third Chair, to approve the minutes from the September 28, 2022 General Service meeting. Second.
Got a motion to approve the minutes as presented by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Halverson. All those in favor, or before we do that, is there any discussion? If in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carried unanimously, and we won't have any action items since we removed item number 2. And so we'll go to the non-action items, and these are all reports. We'll go to item number 3. Who's going to take that one?
So we will. Unless someone else wants to. So I'm Alex, for those that don't know me. I am the recreation manager. And
I'm Sarah Bradley. I'm the sports tourism manager.
so a little bit of what we'll be talking when I drive for us. So we're really going to be talking about 3 different items here, but they all kind of correlate together. So they each have their own individual process, but they intertwine a bit. So first I'll be talking about sports leagues and how we manage those agreements, then travel teams, and then Sarah's going to take the sports tourism events. So we'll start with sports leagues. So a little bit about our current process, and I know it's a little small out there, but I presented on this a couple months ago. It's very similar, so I'm going to go through it very quickly. But it starts with an initial meeting with their league president and myself, where we talk about timelines, terms, sweat equity, things that they'll be doing. From there, we as the recreation department draft an MOU and we send it to legal for review. Once legal approves it, I go back to that league president and they sign it and they provide a copy of insurance listing the city as additionally insured. And then those signed copies go back to legal for their final review and execution. from there, this is what, when we talk about sweat equity, how we come up with the fees and sweat equity. So in those initial meetings with league presidents, I show them a form that looks just like this, that lists out what it costs the city to maintain those fields on an annual basis, broken down by mowing, water, everything that it takes. Comes out with the final number. So this is the one for Pocorn. So we take that final annual field maintenance number, divide it by 12 to get whatever the monthly fee is. And then we multiply that number by whatever the term is for that league. So in this made up example, we have a team that, or a league that's out on Pocorn for 2 months, which gives us a fee of about $6,400. But then we apply the 30% cost recovery that has been identified for youth sports teams or leagues, which brings us to a fee of $1,936. So that's how we come up with the initial fee. And then from there, we provide options to the league. Hey, give us money, or hey, provide work, which we're calling sweat equity, based on that same fee, and we'll credit your account. So in this example, we have 2 months worth of mowing, essentially. So if a league says, hey, we're going to be out there for 2 months, and while we're out there, we're going to mow the field so that the parks crew doesn't have to, we're going to give them credit for 2 months worth. So in many cases, a lot of leagues won't have to actually pay us in money. Here in this example, the sweat equity credit is more than the actual fee. So these are the leagues that were out on our fields this year. And with their agreement term dates, the number of participants that they had, that they self-reported to us, and how much they paid in either actual money or how much we were able to credit them in sweat equity. So in many cases, it was either they paid us fees or they paid us sweat equity, or both, like RYFL had a little of both in their agreement. So some additional information, and I was trying to capture the 14 questions that Councilor Urpesa had asked. So these didn't quite fit in there, but practicing was one of the things. Practicing is permitted on most fields per the agreement terms of the leagues, with the exception of the competition fields at Cielo Grande. Those are game-only fields. So anytime we create an agreement for the competition fields only, we write it in there that they're for games only. The city will provide sensible equipment to maintain a facility if that equipment is requested. And what I mean by sensible is, I'm not going to give someone a riding lawnmower to go and mow, but a water hose or rakes, the smaller scale stuff, we could do that no problem at all. Anything that'll help. Anything that's not going to provide a liability to the city, like a riding lawnmower. And then the contact person for all leagues is myself. I am available after hours 7 days a week, and I have received phone calls at 6 a.m. on Sundays at 8 p.m. And all that, and that is perfectly okay. So what's next? So I started in January, so 2022 has really been a learning year for me. And I truly believe that the only way to get better is to look back and see what we can do better. So the plan for leagues for 2023 is to create pre and post facility checklist so that we can do pre and post walkthroughs of the leagues. And the intention is for those to be very detailed and for it to be very clear on, hey, the restrooms are clean at the beginning, we expect them to be clean at the end of the season. Or this light bulb is out at the beginning, it is the city's responsibility to replace it. Ooh, the mowing is the league's responsibility, so on and so forth. So very detailed is the intent. And then we're intending to do monthly walkthroughs with the Parks Department to ensure that that quality of work is up there. So if a league says, hey, they're going to do the mowing, we're going to be checking that on a monthly basis. And then travel teams. So before we jump into this one, I do want to start by saying, again, 2022 was a learning year for me, especially on the travel teams. So I do want to say that the process I'm going to talk about and what's going forward is what the intention should have been and what we're planning to do in 2023 and coming strong. So I will acknowledge that there were some weaknesses with travel teams on my end. So a little bit about the travel team process. Travel teams are permitted to use sports facilities for practice only. They're not a league, they're a travel team, so it's practice only. The way this works is a head coach will complete the use of facilities agreement that has been established and provide a copy of insurance listing the city as additionally insured. The fee that has been set is $250 per year, so a lot cheaper than a league. And then the way the scheduling of practices works kind of depends on whether they're practicing on a field with a league that already exists and has the current MOU. So I'll use Lions Hondo as the example. We have an agreement with Lions Hondo, so if a travel team wants to use Lions Hondo or Randy Willis, then the Lions Hondo president will schedule their practices. If we have a field that is where a league doesn't currently exist, like Pocorn, then the recreation department will schedule those practices.
So can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
If you have like UNOP or Lions Hondo and you have a travel team that decides that they want to practice in one of those fields, do they come through you or they go through the president?
So they'll come through me. We'll make sure that they have all the paperwork aligned, so their insurance is in place. They've paid the $250. Then what I'll do is all that.
To the city, not to the league.
Correct, to the city, not a league. In all the lease agreements, yeah, it's a city facility, and all lease agreements, it says that leagues are not allowed to sublet. So everything has to run through the city. And then what I'll do is I'll contact the league president and I'll say, hey, this travel team has cleared, they've done all their paperwork, they're good to practice. All that league president is doing is making sure that there's no conflicts on that field. Does that answer that?
Answer that one, but it brings up another one.
Oh, no.
I know that this may be a little different from NUNAP and Lions Hondo at Pocorn. I know there was one individual that has like two teams, one softball, one baseball, travel teams. So do they get charged or?
So I do have that. You're jumping a little.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. All good.
Do you know how many, sorry, do you know how many travel teams did we have this past year? Do you know?
I will, you're jumping too.
Sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Ready for the next slide?
I am. So I will say again, this has been a learning curve and I am sure we did not capture every travel team this year. These are the ones we did capture this year. So we had travel teams on Noon Optimist, Pocorn, Charlie McVeigh, Woolpool, and Joe Bauman. There are other facilities available like Randy Willis, Stiles Field, and any city park is available because they're open spaces and open parks. So if we go to the next one. So the way practices and field maintenance works, again, either if we have an established league, they maintain the fields. If we have a non-established league with an MOU, we maintain the fields. So the example of that would be Pocorn. We don't have an established league. City goes out and provides maintenance. If practicing on a field that is maintained by the city, like Pocorn, a team can opt to do additional work on that field as a goodwill basis. So they say, hey, look, the city is maintaining it. We think we could do more. It's a goodwill basis. We don't have anything in place right now for sweat equity for travel teams. And same thing, we'll provide sensible equipment if they request it. Teams are not limited to a time limit for their practice, but limits may apply depending on their governing body. So USSSA may say, hey, teams can only practice this amount of time a week, or so on and so forth.
Are they limited to how many they can have?
No.
So they can have, for that 250, they could have a practice every day on that field?
They can, as long as they fall within their governing body. A lot of youth organizations limit how much a team is allowed to practice.
But that seems like there's going to be a lot of maintenance on that field for that $250. Why I was thinking like that maybe they're, like, you know what I'm saying? Because if there's some that are closed or whatever, and they do it every day, that's a lot of maintenance.
Absolutely. And I don't disagree. It's just what's currently in place. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree at all. It's just what,
What you're doing right now, I get
yeah. So keys are provided to the head coach, and we have no problem providing additional keys as long as the head coach requests keys. So the head coach says, hey, I need a key for my assistant or my two assistants. We can do that. We have all of our keys being made through the parks department and that locksmith.
Is there a deposit for the key if it's lost or anything?
Currently, no, there is not a deposit.
I have some.
Do you have
I
a
have
thing
some.
that says do not duplicate?
They do say it on there,
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
or most of my keys say do not
Not that
duplicate.
it helps, but
No, it doesn't. But yeah, on the back of them, they do say do not duplicate.
Locksmiths actually do read that, but anybody can make a key now.
Right, because that's part of Home Depot and put it in.
All right, so some additional information. Again, there is no sweat equity option for travel teams. Fees are paid per team, not per individual.
Sorry, soccer teams, because I noticed all the other ones you showed were soccer and baseball. I mean, softball and baseball, right?
Yeah, it includes soccer as well. So there was one soccer team
Okay.
out there over at Joe Bauman. So yeah, fees are paid per team, not an individual. So if there's an individual that has multiple teams, that $250 is per team. And again, the contact person is myself at all hours except 2 a.m. When I'm speaking. But yeah, anyone is always welcome to call my cell phone. So what's next? Again, travel teams are probably my biggest eye opener. So that's where a lot of the focus is going to be in 2023. We really need to identify those travel teams early. I was behind the 8 ball this year, and we were playing a lot of catch up on trying to get agreements, and I know we did not capture all of them. We also have that key control issue. So the Parks Department did just purchase I don't know if you know this, Jim, but you guys bought a system to try and control and number keys a lot better and track who has keys, who doesn't. And then we're going to be working, and we've started a little bit on rekeying all of our fields. It's really expensive to do all of them all at once, so we're going to have to do it one field at a time.
That's kind of why I was thinking about a fee or something for they lose a key because, or something, the key's not returned. To me, rekeying the field is expensive. That's why I'm thinking maybe you ought to consider some type of, in your agreement, some type of, if the key's lost or whatever, some type of fee that they would have to pay because it's not cheap to rekey field. Then you don't know who has the keys.
Absolutely. And I think
That may be something.
more of the problem that we're falling is on that do not duplicate,
You're
where it's not
duplicating.
so much that,
We're losing them and getting some extra.
yeah, we're making too many. And we haven't quite found a solution to that because they do say do not duplicate, but everyone knows somebody. So we'll be brainstorming on that for sure. I'm going to pass it along now.
I have one question before you go to sports too. Can I say something?
sure.
Tennis, I didn't see tennis up there. I had somebody come to with a problem about the tennis courts. What they call constituents? Yeah, those people. They came and there was a problem at the tennis courts. And so the problem was they pay fees. I didn't see anything with tennis listed in the leagues. Does tennis count in the league stuff or no?
So earlier this year, it was near when I started, we reached out to the Tennis Association to try and get an MOU in place. The response we got back was that they were no longer using Cahoon Park for league play, but they were using one of the schools because they did not want to create or enter into an agreement with the city.
But they are using it
Yeah, because this.
for practice.
They were having a game. This person said they were having a game and some young people came along with their music and was cussing and fussing and tried to jump on one of the players playing tennis and they called the police.
So what I will say is that
They said we paid for this field, so that we pay fees. And so, okay, we pay fees. So I'm just saying, that's what they told me. And so that's why I was asking. They said we pay fees, so we should be able to play here without any, disruption. So when the police came, they made the people playing tennis leave. So,
It's like the guy with the soccer that called me. We pay fees to use the field.
yeah, that's what he said. I said, I know they used to have an agreement. I knew that. So I didn't fight it because I knew they used to. And so he was saying there was a whole incident and police were really ugly and they did a lot of ugly things that day. So about the fields and so, and that the young people, they were graffitiing the thing that they called the police for, but they still made the people playing tennis leave and not the kids that were graffitiing the stuff over
Wrote down tennis.
there. Tennis. So,
Because that is definitely used to,
oh, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry, I'm done. I'm not gonna talk to you.
Okay, we'll hold you to it.
Okay, so I wanted to give you guys an update of where we are with sports tourism and how it, kind of coincides with the leagues and the travel teams. So currently leagues with an MOU, these leagues do not need additional permissions to operate a tournament. However, they must notify the sports tourism manager, myself, and complete a tournament request form. Currently, the following fees apply. Youth tournaments, $10 a team. Adult tournaments, $20 a team. And we are requesting that payment will be due 14 days prior to the start of a tournament. Now, organizations without a current MOU, anyone without the current MOU, annual MOU, wishing to operate a tournament in Roswell must first contact the sports tourism manager and complete the tournament request form. That form will then get turned over to the set committee or our set special event team, where they will go through and either approve or deny the requested tournament. The tourism manager will then notify the organization of the committee's decision, and then they will go into negotiations with the organization running the tournament. The sports tourism manager will draft an MOU, get it approved by legal, and ensure the organization signs it and provides a copy of insurance that lists the city additionally insured. Leading up to the event, the sports tourism manager will be the city's contact for the organization. They will provide all needed information such as hotel accommodations, attractions, different things to do around town, etc. And at the conclusion of the tournament, the sports tourism manager will complete a final walkthrough of the facility with the organization.
Is there a reason a team would not be able to have a tournament? You said they notify, yes or no?
So sometimes it depends on how far out they request for the tournament. If we get a request next week for 3 days from now, the city can't as a whole gather enough staff, enough time to be able to provide that tournament with the appropriate services.
Or
So
if it's
time.
already booked.
Right,
Okay.
correct, like the date.
We had an issue last week. We're coming up with the fields where another event already had it booked and then we received a special event permit really late. This follows our current special event application process with the one addition is that new tournament request form, because with tournaments and sports tourism, we want to gather some additional data for overnight stays in the goal of lodgers tax increases. But
Can you walk us through the process? I could visualize it if you walk us through the process more than step by step of how the application can go through the process.
So, okay, so,
Let me give you an example.
okay.
Let's say we want to have a softball tournament.
Mhm.
So who comes to you and say, we want to have a softball tournament?
So the tournament director, I'm assuming if there's a tournament director, an event director for the association that puts on the event, they would contact myself and say, I need the form, or ask me where to find the form to fill the form out. They would turn the form into me. So then I would take it to set committee. We as a committee would go through the form.
Who's that committee?
It's our special events team.
Mhm.
So if
it consists of police, fire, parks, streets, myself, who else about it? Recreation. It's a pretty much every position or a representative from the city that would have anything to do with special events. And that's been our process, our regular special event policy since like 2017. It streamlines it for the organizer so that the organizer doesn't have to go to 10 different departments to get approval and authorization. It's all in one complete packet. And like we had our set team meeting today for events that are coming up in the next month, actually in the next 3 months, because we try to have it turned in 120 days prior. So then the month prior to the actual event, we review, okay, does streets have barricades, cones, this. Did we get all of the authorization for police and fire? Is it overtime or is it regular time? Sanitation, have they set up their account with sanitation to purchase their roll off? So there's a lot of moving parts with the events. And so this would follow that same process. Because it's new, we implemented the new tournament request form to again gather some additional data. So for example, we have a application that was turned in today for a flag football event that's coming up in next calendar year. It was an incomplete application because there really wasn't any information from the organizer about the traffic control plan or a copy of the insurance. A lot of times we also need, if like it's going to close Main Street, we need the copy from DOT authorizing them to close Main Street before we can give them a permit because that's not our street. So a lot of those pieces are discussed at that meeting. And then we have either Sarah or April Hunter, who manages the set packets, go through and checks off, yes, they have it, no, they don't. So for example, the flag football, we were talking about it today, it's more of a tournament. So that Sarah will be the point of contact, but then she'll run it through the set process with everything.
Okay.
And it just gives the organizer one point of contact to kind of gather all of that information for them so that they're not having to talk to 10 different people.
So what is the next step on the,
So after that, that's when myself and the tournament organizer will go into negotiations as far as, which it ends up being on the next slide, as far as what costs will be for the negotiation or the consideration for the tournaments.
because I don't know if you're familiar with the Roswell Girls Softball Association or not.
I'm getting there. I'm new, so, but I'm going through all the
The
processes.
thing is that when I used to be involved, we used to run the tournaments. But what I understand nowadays, it's Julie Rodriguez, who is the USSSA district or New Mexico director that runs those tournaments. So there's not a current person from the league.
Right.
So who do you deal with?
So if the state tournament director, so this is how we're working with baseball, and I know it's different from softball, but the state tournament director is the one that I've been speaking with to bring a baseball tournament in here. Victor Falvey, he is one of the ones that does the tournaments in Hobbs.
You're USSSA.
Yes, West Texas, that kind of thing. He's my point of contact to bring those tournaments in. We would use the league fields for the tournament, but he would be the tournament organizer. We wouldn't be asking for the leagues to be the tournament organizers.
So who makes the money? Who profits the money?
We're going to
Yeah,
get to that.
yeah. I was gonna say that comes
We
in.
have some options for you.
Yes,
I'm guessing, I'm assuming that if there's a league that's playing on those fields, they take precedence over a tournament.
right. So that's where, as far as like the negotiations and everything go, we would sit down and make sure that the dates that they want to bring those tournaments here, New Knopf and Lions Hondo don't have spring ball going on, and we wreck their plans for going through that.
Or like we had one, the soccer.
Yes.
This past summer. So our soccer association already had soccer going on. There was a sports tournament that wanted to come, a soccer tournament. So we had to adjust the time.
Right.
So one other question.
Yes.
The, when you work on baseball tournaments, the majority of those tournaments are going to be your SSSA, not Little League. Am I correct?
Yes.
So do they play in Little League fields? Or
So
do they
that's-
play on the girls softball?
I was gonna say that's coming in the next one. Yes. But I understand. So these are kind of some of the negotiation considerations for tournaments that we are looking at. Field fees, with the travel teams or with the leagues, how we have the annual field maintenance fees, breaking it down so that the tournaments organizers, they cover these field fees. Restrooms, outside vendors, potential additional fees based on percentage of team registrations. If we had a tournament that brought in 200 teams, it would vary per tournament depending on how many teams. So we don't have a set percentage. But if we had a tournament come in and say they bring in 200 plus teams, then, it's negotiating on that part.
You anticipate a 200 plus team?
There is a potential. A 5 week. I'm working on it. Or not 5 weeks, not 5 weeks, 5 days. 5 days.
And where they gonna play at?
So our event tournament days, the day before, I would walk through with the event organizers on any of the fields or anything like that. Day of, I would check in with the event organizers, make sure that they have everything that they need, everything's a go. But they will always be able to call me in case of emergency if there are any needs that come in last minute. After the event, we'll have a facility walkthrough again to go through and make sure that everything was or as it was before.
And what if it's not?
That's where in our MOU, we would go through and make sure that if, fields were torn up or anything, it would be covered in our MOU. So our economic impact success, it's kind of like how we do with regular events. We would look at lodgers tax, GRT, direct revenue. A lot of tournaments that we have been a part of, my family included, they have surveys attached to the registration forms when the teams go to register. They ask how many nights they've stayed in that location, what hotel they stayed in, how many rooms, and any other general questions that we could ask.
And let me ask about the softball. I thought this I discussed with Juanita. We talk about, what's that law, anti-donation law.
Mm-hmm.
The last tournament that I saw for softball, there were like 15, 16 RVs parked out there. So does that not fall into the anti-donation by providing space for the travels and prohibiting or limiting, I guess, the RV parks to have those individuals go and park their RVs at their place?
And we kind of talked a little bit about this, and that is why we want them to fill out that tournament form, because like if we don't know about it, it's kind of like our short-term rentals right now. There's a lot of short-term rentals that are operating in Roswell that we are not aware of, and we're finding them through our compliance as we're doing our search and scans. They're evading the lodger's tax of turning it into the city. Same thing for overnight RVs. Our RV parks do pay lodger's tax, but when they are parking in a city parking lot, which I believe we have a city ordinance that doesn't allow overnight parking, or there might be a fee, like at the convention center, it's $50 to hook up to the electrical. That's where we're trying to get a handle on these tournaments. And unfortunately, softball had been just kind of operating because there really wasn't a sports tourism structure until about a year ago. That's where we're trying to get a handle on it. But yeah, you're correct.
And it's just not softball.
Right. It's all, even at
If you
Cielo
have
Grande
it,
for
if
hiking
you have
and
it
spiking.
at the football fields, Styles football fields, you have plenty of
Yes.
space out there as well. So
And that's where we would look to you as the council to give us some guidance and direction. You want us to charge so that it's fair and equitable to the RV parks, or is that something that needs to be worked out in their MOU with the city? Does the city get a percentage of, their parking fees? So for example, we had some tournaments in the past that the organization collected all of the revenues for overnight parking and the city got zero, but then the city was having to work the parking lot of it. So that's just something that we would need your guidance on.
well, and again, I can just draw back on my own experience of how we used to, and Councilor Sanchez can attest to it, that back then the leagues were the ones who were putting on the tournaments.
Right.
And that was their primary fundraiser. And so we would take money from the concession stand more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, raised $5,000-6,000 for a 3-day tournament. And that's how the league survived.
Right.
And from, I'm hearing the new structure is, I'm not sure that that's going to happen with the leagues.
Well, and from my knowledge, I don't know if they've reached out to you, but I've not heard from the leagues about wanting to put on or bring in big tournaments. Most of it has come from the directors, at the state level. That's not saying that they wouldn't be interested in it. And that's definitely a conversation that we can have with the leagues about bringing in or creating their own tournaments. But this was just in talks with the state director at the USSSA level.
And this structure does allow for that. That's why
Right.
there's what do you do if there's a tournament with someone that already has the established MOU?
Right.
Because that would be more for new Knob, Lions Hondo, the girls softball, RYSA, where, hey, we're running it as a fundraiser. So we're attaching it to our current MOU. We're already maintaining these fields. We're the primary users. So then they're able to bring in that fundraising money. What this currently is, or that other structure is, hey, it's not a fundraiser for a local Roswell league. It's someone else coming in they're looking to make money, essentially. And that's what this secondary structure is for.
But what I'm hearing, and maybe I'm hearing wrong, I don't know. But it's more the city taking charge of the tournaments, whether it be baseball, softball, tennis, whatever it may be. But it's more the city taking charge of those tournaments.
Taking ownership of the fields, allowing tournaments to operate their tournament, however they operate their tournament, because every tournament is different through an organizer, but taking ownership of the fields, saying, hey, these are city fields, so these are the standards we have for those fields. It's more what the intent is.
And to me, that makes sense because
Right.
you've seen it, I've seen it, like they've destroyed some of the soccer fields and stuff.
Right.
There's got to be some accountability.
Keeping track of those organizers that come in so that we have the MOU to go through and we make sure we have them accountable for the things that happen to our fields or facilities.
So you as the sports tourism manager,
Mhm.
when a tournament is going on, are you going to be spot checking
Yes.
or anything like that? Because I guarantee you, it doesn't matter what the rule is, somebody's going to break it,
Right,
especially alcohol.
right.
You know, there will be alcohol in those fields regardless of whether there's kids or not.
Right.
And we get away with it because
They're running.
they haven't, let's say we haven't
Right.
done anything to really prevent it.
Right, correct. But I will be out there.
It's not the whole
As-
time.
Right, but as support to those entities, because I do know as participating for my kids in these travel tournaments, I myself have seen it as well. And so I know the importance of having a contact for the coaches, for the organizer, to be out there and at least, do the best of my ability to make sure that that stuff stays under control.
And so what is a consequence if indeed you find, say, alcohol?
That wouldn't be something that she would take on, but that would be where we would rely on RPD
Right.
or
Security.
security. A lot of times, I mean, and I'm going to speak for Sarah because it's under my department. I wouldn't want her to approach a group of people who are drinking in a parking lot because then that puts her safety at risk. But we would.
Well, absolutely.
Right.
But in my opinion, there should be some kind of consequence,
In their MOU.
maybe
it
after
could
the
be-
fact.
in their MOU saying that that's prohibited on city property, especially with youth. So that's
Well, and I mean, that is one thing, if they're affiliated with a certain team, it could be, this team doesn't get to come back to the tournament, or at least bringing it to the forefront of the organizer, letting them know these parents or these team members were associated doing this, and they on their end can handle it that way as well.
Question. I'm turning to Rita now. So when somebody say they rent sail around, who maintains the facilities, the bathrooms and stuff? Is there someone that goes in there from the city that to check them?
So that,
You want to take that for the leagues? Because that comes up a lot. So
Absolutely. So currently, with our league MOUs, the leagues are responsible for stocking and cleaning the restrooms. And that's how those league MOUs are written. Part of that pre and post checking is going to be going in and making sure that they're clean and they're not. And if they're not, and it wasn't the league. So if we checked it at the end of a season and we said, hey, the restrooms are clean, they were good, and we come back the following year and they're not, we would have to pay to get them cleaned and get them ready for that.
So then,
Done that.
so, I'm
no,
sorry.
you had.
So in the non-MOU organization, this would be a negotiation consideration. Hey, we know that there are restrooms here. Do you want us to take care of cleaning those restrooms and stocking those restrooms? If so, there's going to be a fee.
Yeah.
If you guys are going to do it, then there will be no fee, but that is going to be on you, and that would be something that would be on their MOU. Same thing, porta potties. If we have something out at Poke Horn, I know that their building is no longer useful right now, where you're going to have to get porta potties. Do you want us to get those porta potties for you locally? Yes, there's going to be a fee. If not, you can go ahead and handle it.
Okay.
So what's next? As I mentioned before, I have been in communications with the USSSA state baseball or tournament director to bring baseball tournaments to Roswell. In order to do that, we do know that we do have fields that will require improvements. Those fields currently, Noon Optimist, Randy Willis, Joe Bauman, and Poke Horn. I know that there are some other options. There are the men's softball fields that we could work on and adjust, but this right here is what we've been working on, because I know that there is not one league site that could handle as many teams as, a lot of these travel tournaments or bring in. I've also been in talks with the VP of sales for Gus Macker, which is a 3-on-3 basketball tournament that has taken place in Roswell before. We have received the initial proposal. And they're really excited to try and get back into Roswell, into Southeast New Mexico. I've also been in contact with RCX Sports. They're a one-stop shop for youth sports experiences. They offer junior NBA, NFL flag, MLB, pitch, hit, and run. And that is free of charge to kids that participate in those, what are they, not tournaments, but.
Non-traditional
Right.
events, sporting events.
And we've spoken with them, and that also is not a charge to the city. They are affiliated with the MLB, NBA, NFL, and so those organizations pay for them to come out here and help put those events on for the city.
and do you want to talk about what's going to finance?
Oh, so yes.
So you can get.
So for next month, finance, we will be sending in a request for approval for fencing and netting, a lot of this field improvements for these fields to bring the fields up to standards to have a USSSA baseball tournament. Again, Noon Optimist, Randy Willis, Joe Bowman, and Poke Horn are the fields that we have been looking at. The other option that we have looked at would be Noon Optimist, Randy Willis, Joe Bowman, and the men's softball fields, because I do know that the girls softball fields are already USSSA ready. But I do know that the men's softball fields will take some work. And so we're going to be taking that to finance for approval and.
But you're talking about USSSA baseball, right?
Right.
And
Baseball.
yeah, and my understanding when the girls softball fields were done, it was with the understanding that USSSA baseball would be able to use them as well.
Mhm.
And that, as a matter of fact, they bought 4
Yeah.
pitching mounts.
Yes. So that was why, that's the second option that we could have is instead of putting money into Poke Horn, potentially working on the men's softball field so that both the girls softball fields and the men's softball fields can be a larger hub, and then offer Lions Hondo and Noon Optimist as smaller venues to have the rest of the tournament at.
That's a better idea because of the parking and the other stuff available. I think that's a much
Right.
better option. Do you have any kind of money numbers that you were thinking about? Since you're going to finance, what numbers are you, dollar numbers are you looking?
I can say I didn't bring the numbers, but
Random, I mean, just not, I'm not talking about to the penny. You just, where are you looking at? How much money are you looking at spending?
I think to all the fields,
Was about 200 for the fencing.
Right.
All 4 of those fields. And it would be replacing all the interior fencing that's been frayed and
some of the backstops, yeah, and then netting.
That's
Yes.
all?
for all 4. No, not $200. $200,000
And the
What about
most important part,
scoreboards?
it's already,
allocated.
Yes.
What about scoreboards and lights? Have y'all already looked into those? I'm just all.
So that's I was going to say that like scoreboards, lighting, that kind of thing. That is something that we have looked into and have gotten estimates on. But because they're so costly, it's something that we've budgeted or looked at further out in our 5-year plan. The fencing is something that we can tangibly do now with the money that's been budgeted. But the rest of the stuff is kind of, because, we've gotten requests from the leagues as well as to redo the bathrooms, the concession stands, which I know are needed. They're just extremely expensive, and it would go to having to choose what location to start at first, and why did we choose that location, and so forth.
and we're always open to
Yes.
guys budgeting for those projects. But again, it's part of the priority listing
Right.
in the process. So
Okay.
any other questions you have?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And can I ask one question on the, because we do have a proposal for Bestmacher, do you guys have any direction, or we can't really give direction, but any comments or suggestions on how you would like that? Is that something that the city would like to participate in? I wasn't here when it was here,
That
but
was
we
amazing.
It was.
heard it was.
Dan Foley.
Okay, I don't. But that is.
I thought you said I don't want to do that.
Dan Foley, no, he got this, but
I don't know some of those.
Oh, man.
But that is something you want us working on?
I think it would be awesome since we lost the football. I remember we used to close down, they used to have it in the parking lot. No, it used to be on the.
It was at the Wool Bowl, yes.
The parking lot and the street itself was
Yeah.
blocked off.
they had it at the mall.
Yes.
Dunking contest and.
And it was very highly attended, and when I initially spoke with the VP of sales, they were extremely excited about bringing it back. And we have that initial proposal in the packet to look over, but it's something
Oh,
that,
man, that's why you're going like this.
Answer to that is, it depends how much money the city has to.
Put out, so that would be our tournament, not
Because
like.
you're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000-$40,000. Because
yeah,
these
I know,
individuals
but they bring in thousands.
are in the business of making money.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And
And that is the one that has a high cost to it.
and so when those tournaments that you're talking about were being brought in,
They were.
it actually cost the businesses for sponsorship.
Right,
You'd go out and look for sponsorships. So the businesses were the ones that were really paying
or not.
to have that kind of tournament. And if the city is going to say, yeah, we agree, pay $40,000, then my answer would be no.
But if you pay 40 and make, 100. I'm just saying. Then you got the GRT and largest tax, or those thousands and thousands of people coming. You got to pay some money to make some money, man.
I don't think.
I was going to say Bestmacher is that, you asked about the 200. Mescalero, they sent me numbers from their last go around for tournaments. Mescalero had over 250 teams that they brought in, and that's
For
Mescalero.
baseball or?
No, this is basketball, Bestmacher. And so if anything, I know that we've had in the past, growing up here, I know that we've had that many teams or
Yeah,
more
No
even.
more.
So.
But we weren't in charge of it. That's kind of the
Right,
difference.
right.
We weren't the organizers, so that made it a little different because we were just there, we were just making.
Clay Avery.
And see our team and all that.
Yes,
But
yeah.
Great. Thank you for your feedback.
All right, moving on to the next one.
Good afternoon, council members. I am just revisiting the discussion we had last month about our fee-based program. We can quickly just run through a lot of the stuff where we surveyed 90 zoos in the process of just trying to understand what they have. Next slide. We came up kind of where we compare with in-state comparables and finding out that we're pretty spot on. Next slide. And kind of where we reach with the national average of zoos, depending on if they're, well, this was a comparison for the movie dollars. So if you only have so many dollars to go out and do things and entertain yourself, we were just comparing ourselves with AZA zoos, non-AZA zoos, non-affiliated zoos, governmental, non-governmental, town sizes, big and small, and how we compare. For all that, I just want to point out when we take away any other free zoos, the average governmental zoo pays $4.91 or 70% of what it costs for a movie. So our $5 fee is spot on there. So next slide is, so our recommendations for our fee base were to try to basically keep it the same. We were looking at our military and senior rates and student rates. That was for in town and out of town. So they all got the same rates. What we're looking at doing is changing the structure so our in-town seniors, military, and students stay the same at $3, but our out-of-towners still get a discount, but it's based on the $10 fee, so a $2 discount, which brings them for $8 non-residents. Let's see, so our memberships, when we did our research, we found out that maybe we were a little bit higher than normal, so that's why we adjusted our rates there. We feel that that will increase people to come and visit the zoo through the membership program. The membership program, we're really focused on trying to add more to the memberships, like free admission or discounted admission to other zoos, events that we have. So Night of the Living Zoo that's coming up this weekend. You'll be able, as a member, to come in free for that event, and then also discounted events for our brew events with our friends. If we do things like a ribbon cutting ceremony, November 12th, we're also having a membership brunch. So people get to come into the zoo a little bit early if they're members. So these are incentives to encourage people to buy the memberships, even though we offer many days for free, which is kind of our next subject. So our institution is heavily dependent on tourism dollars and weather. So we feel that our current rates in 3 days should remain the same. We do not predict the loss of income based on our current trends. We're actually seeing an increase in our visitation from month to month. If council would like to offer more days for our residents, this is the discussion we had last month, was how do we encourage more free days? Should we encourage more free days and whatnot? At that point, we've already, like I mentioned, we've already seen an increase in that. So this was kind of the discussion that Councilmember Halverson volunteered to talk to me to try to look at those free days. Our attraction rides, we want to basically keep the same so that they are affordable to everybody. Our rental rates, we kind of did a little bit of that review as well. We don't really want to have a rental rate just for the room because we found out that people would just go to the zoo afterwards. So they're paying for the room, but also enjoying the zoo because we weren't able to constantly monitor them and determine if they were headed to the parking lot, headed to the bathrooms, headed to see the zoo. So we kind of wanted to nix that option of just a party room, but we wanted to sit there and say, if up to 20 guests or come to the party room and rent that, that's $150. And then we just add for every additional guest after that. Initial 20 up to 40 because that's what the room holds for the fire marshal has rated it. So we also looked at how do we rent the whole zoo out, how many people are involved. In this case, because there's a lot that the guests can want us to do and add-ons, we just had call for pricing so we can meet their needs if they need tents or this, very similar to what we were talking about with sports tourism. It's kind of cater it to their needs and whatnot, and then have a reasonable percentage increase in that 25% markup for any things that we offer. So that's kind of where we look at that one. So I also did a comparison to local businesses in the area and kind of asked what they would charge. Once again, we're very competitive in that regards as well. Educational programming, once again, we kind of looked at where we were at and found our price points in those regards. We did want to come down a little bit on some of these programs and up on other ones based on those type of deals. We don't really do private tours, so we were looking at doing private tours before and after hours. And then also where we're at with our animal encounters and how we do that if we go on site or out of town and whatnot. So very similar to the recreation, as we don't see increasing more than 20% a year as inflation affects our cost on materials and our other needs. Those are similar things as far as camps go. So we did some research as to what other camps in the area charge. Find out once again, we are very comparable in that aspect. So our conversation, so Councilmember Halverson, you can help clarify, and this is what we talked about. So we met a couple of weeks ago. We discussed really our thing was how many free days do we want to offer? When do we have them? I know Councilmember Oropesa talked about Saturdays. If it's just Saturdays, not everyone can do a Saturday. So, and then how do we communicate? But we felt kind of a need for the full committee to discuss this. So when we're looking at how many free days do we offer, the Spring River Zoo free days are one of the most generous in the country. Offering more free days will impact our membership numbers as well as our revenue. So at this point, on an earlier slide, we offer 13 free days to the citizens of Roswell. And those are the first Saturdays of the month and our anniversary day, if you will, in July. So we offer that. And then our senior citizens get 50 some every Friday, they get a free day. So even our senior citizens get a good bonus on that one as well. It was on there.
52.
Yeah, 52 for the seniors. There you go. Yep. So Zurn currently has the 13 free days and then 65 in that regard. Yeah. And if we went to adding during our slower times in December, that's 62 more days that our citizens can enjoy. So those are kind of just to give you an idea. Currently, I couldn't think of any. There are some subsidies that states offer in other states that they get hundreds of thousands of dollars so that the state residents can enter those zoos for free. But those are all subsidized, and I only know of Illinois and New York that did that. And that was due with a statewide tourism lodgers tax, similar type of deal. So we felt that we are very generous in that aspect. However, when do we issue those free days? Because Saturday is typically our highest attendance, so offering those free days actually can be a loss of revenue for us. Councilor Oropesa, you expressed concerns that not all citizens benefit from this program if we only offered it on that day.
Well, one thing we talked about, we had a lengthy discussion. That's why I was hoping Jeff would be here. So we get the water bills that people get. Everyone gets a printed bill, even if they pay online. So if we add a barcode, the same kind of system that you guys use, where they can bring their bill, you scan it, and they get, like 10 free entries for that one bill. So it would scan it, and then it would mark them down that they've been there that month. So once a month, up to 10 people from that household could go to the zoo for free.
Or you could keep your whole year's pass and then come 10 days in a row, 12 days in a row. So it would allow our citizens to then choose which days of the year they did. And they did something very similar in Kansas City. I think I brought it up last month too, is they offered one free day and they had almost 10,000 people in the first couple of hours and shots in the parking lot. So what they did is they just found a different way of giving everybody their choice of when they would have that free day. And that's actually helped out in that situation. The one question we had is, I rent an apartment, my water's included. How do I get that free day? That's kind of our question point right now. So it would help out with water billing. So people would be encouraged to pay their water bills and get their tickets, and then also meet your needs, Mr. Chair, to address that flexibility in that. How do we get that communicated? We also talked about potentially adding days during our school breaks. which is what I was kind of thinking that
Maybe
December,
the Wednesday
January.
during spring break or something.
Right. But having the tickets can allow them to choose to go during those times, because offering free days during school breaks, I'm sorry, when Christmas is coming up, I'm headed to Mississippi with my family. I hadn't seen it in 3 years, but when people get school breaks, they might be out of the community and not being able to use it during those times too. It's a choice.
But the water bill made sense to make sure that residents, for one, and for another, they can use it once per month, or like you said, save them up. But the barcode on it would be able to determine who it was and make sure they only go in that once that month, not 2 or 3 times with the same water bill.
Yeah, and I talked to the water department, they do a third-party mailing, so whatever we would just insert in there would go with that billing as well. So there's actually a potential option. There's still some stuff to tweak out, and that kind of goes back to how do we communicate that to the general public? And I think some of that might be determined on which method we use.
And I briefly spoke with Jeff, and he was saying it could be done.
And I really have to apologize to you because this one should have been an action item on this agenda. I just overlooked it and I'm sorry, but it should have been because
We already talked.
we postponed it last month.
No, that's okay, because that was our discussion too, is I don't know if I'm really solid to present it to full council without knowing if this is a direction you find is a little bit more appealing. And then we can work on the barcodes, we can work on the details, so we can go to the full council saying, this is how it's going to be implemented. Because this is the question I have is, how do we deal with those citizens that aren't paying the water bills because it's included in their rent?
Because we don't want to have people running into the water department. The staff can't handle that, you know, hey, I live here and, you know, we're trying to avoid that, you know.
I would tell you that you're not going to change my mind, but that doesn't mean that the committee
Mine either.
have a change of mind. Because I am of the opinion, like I've always said, the sewers should be free. And I will stand by that opinion, even if I'm in the minority. So
Right, and I understood that, but I also thought you brought up a valid point with trying to build in that flexibility. So I wanted to at least let you know that I found that a valid concern, and we're trying to meet that as well. And then going back to Councilmember Moore, you got to pay to, what is it, you got to pay to play, or using your words right there. Yep, you got to pay to make the money. So it's a balance, yeah. And that's your decision and every individual council member's
See the
decision.
water bill, pretty much it's free to the residents.
Yeah, so I guess I would just like a little bit, if this is more appealing, I can continue doing that so that we have hopefully have something better to present to you and say, this is the way we're going to carry that out. Because it involves another department. And I want to make sure before I talk to them, I've already talked to them, they're interested, they're for it. It's just figuring out the logistics of it.
and again, obviously, it's up to the committee to determine whether to move forward or not. But my vote would be no. I mean, that's where I stand.
That's not a shock to me at all.
That's a non-action item.
It's an action.
I'd like to move forward with the water bill.
But again, this one should have been an action item. But it isn't.
Tell me those things.
Well,
I just emailed them, please add
I
it.
didn't realize it until this morning. I was really going in
Yeah,
over, looking at the agenda.
because I was
Detail.
questioning it too. I was like, okay.
That we were supposed to talk about it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, you didn't.
everybody make mistakes.
That's okay.
Good report.
Is that all you have, or does anybody have any
I just,
committee member?
I know I'm going to disagree with both of you on this, but I think you do need charge. You have to pay the staff, you have to pay to feed the animals. He'll never be able to improve the enclosures without money unless we give him a lot more, but he needs to, I think they need to make some money.
Well, let me be perfectly honest, why I hold the opinion that I hold. I see other areas that we're losing a lot of money. But yet we're not willing to, for a lack of a better word, lose money in the zoo, the museum and so forth. And when I say other areas that are losing money, I'm talking about the landfill. where they've lost up to $1.7 million in tipping fees, free tipping fees. And at one point, they lost about $1.4 million in tipping fees that the contractors are benefiting from. And then we walked away from a lease that we would have made approximately $1.1 million in a 5-year span. And up to date, we're still losing like $380,000. And so when I see the overall picture, I'm saying, why in the world are we willing to lose that much money at the airport, but we can't seem to accommodate, especially the kids,
200,000.
free of charge?
Well, I'm not willing to lose all that money, but
But
I know what you're saying.
it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening, yeah.
And that's where I'm coming from. That if we're willing to lose so much money in other places, why can't we allow the kids to go anytime that they want to the zoo? So that's where I stand.
And when I say make money, I would like to see the pond, the carousel and the train outside the fence, because I think the ridership would go up because people wouldn't have to pay to get in the zoo to ride those. You know, but you'll still make money because you'll charge for the riding.
I would just say that the heck of a lot of real estate that I can use for animal spacing and welfare, especially with the train.
Yeah.
And that extremely limits our growth.
Yeah.
So I
Ain't
would.
really even working right now. So.
No, they're
Well,
working.
no, the train's rail is.
Yeah, that's what I'm
is
saying. So it's not, we got to
dangerous.
put a lot of money into that first. At least the carousel, maybe 1 and 1, be willing to put the.
The bigger deal of it is can you not just add it as a free experience, which we can discuss as well? If we're just looking at people riding it and enjoying it, then I would.
Oh, you mean
I would
add it part of the
almost-
membership
I would
or
almost-
something?
No, not even part of the membership.
Since they
Part
pay
of
to
their-
get in.
Like Disney, you pay to get in, you ride all the rides. I would be almost more entertaining of that than let the kids ride several times on it.
And that would make
enjoy it,
sense, yeah.
than to lose that real estate and to lose all that option. Because that's my goal, is to add more attractions, more programs, more things for that fee. And then when we feel that that is the $5 and $10 experience, then we can see where we are with attendance. And then we add more, costs more, we up the fees 5 years down the road and revisit it again.
Well, and your membership fee, $80 and unlimited visits to the zoo, that's to me reasonable for a family that they're going to do that. And I like that idea too.
Yeah.
And then what happened to, we were talking about combining the membership fees, like with the member card or something with the museum and something they had talked about doing it on combinations, some kind of combination thing somewhere before. I don't know.
Yeah, I think when all that's set up, you can look at, because I've discussed this at other places where where we're a little bit more independent than we are here, but partnering with the museums and other stuff like that, and we just say, hey, I take a $10 hit, you take a $10 hit.
Right.
But whatever we get, same thing with like our potential for tourists coming in, they can buy tickets at a discount that hit all our major venues. We just have to figure
We
out that
talked about
too.
that before. Yeah.
That makes sense.
But we have to first figure out the fees for each individual before we figure out how to package them.
Wait for Thanksgiving.
Okay,
Remind me.
thank you.
You want?
Oh, we didn't put it on the.
Right, I'd like.
Okay. Do you, since we got everybody here, wanting, I don't know if they will want to, but are they willing to give a report? I'll leave it up to the department heads if you want to go ahead and give a report, or.
I'll just mention that in my report, I left off 2 events and I'm going to pass it out. No one had other copies. Hopefully if I did, it's not. I'll get you some Veterans Day I left off. That one's only,
Mhm.
and then there is, it's going to be great. It's a luncheon that we're having. It's a free luncheon. We got some food donated to this luncheon. We're going to cap it. We don't know how many to expect, but we got food enough for 30 people. So we're going to add to that you'll need to register before here.
Who's having the veterans? Is that the city sponsoring it?
Adult Center.
The adult center, the luncheon. Is that what you're talking about?
Are they having a parade?
The American Legion in the parade.
Is there a parade?
They're working on the parade now.
Yeah.
They're trying to get their permit from the state highway department now. Hope to have that on Friday.
It's on.
I guess the reason my telephone was ringing is an individual from American Legion. And so are we going to be charging for
They were here this afternoon with the mayor, and it wasn't us. They were waiting on their permit from the state, which is the permit that they was held up on. It wasn't the permit with us.
Okay.
Oh, and then we'll issue a permit on Friday.
Is the city going to charge them for the parade?
No, yes, I have no intent to charge them the same way as we did last year.
Okay. Because I'm assuming that that's what the call was about.
Yeah, there was 17 people here. This
17.
All right. I'm glad you brought it up.
And then the other thing is we're having a dance program. And, what day did that say it was? 19th. And so those are the two events that I had left off of your packet information. So you'll know that.
Okay.
Were there any questions on our report for recreation?
I just want everybody to know that probably next month we'll be coming forward with our revised cost for columbariums at cemetery.
With what?
Our revised
Columbarium.
cost numbers for,
Oh.
columbariums. We asked for better numbers since everything went up, so bring them here and then finance will cost. So we just want to make sure everybody knows that it's coming.
For the library, we have a CAA program on the 29th. There's been a change around that. This is our third year doing that. We are also going to have a library board meeting tomorrow, and one of the things that we're going to be talking about is elimination of overdue fines.
And for the museum, we had a busy month. We celebrated our 85th birthday earlier this month. It's a lot of fun. You should stop by and see the show that we put up also in honor of the 85th anniversary. We painted the stage in place, so that was our lower surprises. So for the time being, we're planning on leaving a mural up of the stage where it is, until it gets uncovered, which will be like a fundraising process. We also had our Science and Art Festival over at the Convention Center, and that went really well. We're kind of in the process of decompressing and evaluating and doing all of our annual planning for our programming for next year at this moment. And also a strategic planning process, which is every 3 to 5 year process.
And do you have any report?
Transit is growing. We're getting, I don't know if you looked at our graph, but our ridership is shooting.
I saw. Really? How many buses, buses do we have?
So we have 3.
That's when COVID hit.
Yeah.
It really took a dive.
So we used to have 6 routes, 6 fixed routes. Now we have 3 fixed routes. It just goes up and down Main. But on the side routes, you just call in and they'll get you at the bus stop, take you to a bus stop, or bring you to the depot, and you can catch a Main Street bus.
Also, they don't ride normal like they used to every hour, every 2 hours, and they don't, unless somebody calls, you don't go to the side.
Right. On the side routes. Those are just feeder routes.
I had a couple of incidents out at the base. I have my kids that catch the bus right there, and the bus just goes so fast that they just zoom by so fast. I had to stop right at University High. That's where our kids catch the bus, the city bus. They'd be going so fast that they don't get the kids. And they're usually on that time. They're usually late. So, no, early, not late.
Early.
Mhm.
And the zoo has a couple of things. This weekend is our Night of the Living Zoo. Last year we had 1,800 visitors, so we're doing really, really well. Our attendance is also up for the month of September. But but we'll have to wait to see what our attendance is for Night of Living Zoo because that was a big part of last year. So we'll see where our numbers are at. Also, about a week and a half ago, USDA came by and inspected and we got basically an A+, no non-compliance issues, which means they didn't have anything. So that's the first time in many, many years. So we're progressing in those regards as well. So
Was the zoo closed sometime last week? I was just saying she went.
not to my knowledge, no.
It was closed during the
No.
day.
Sometimes what happens is, and we're going to try to figure it out with Google, they send everyone to our Atkinson Street gate.
And that's why I told her, did you go around the side? You used to come in and she said it was closed. I was like, no, it don't close like that.
Yeah.
Think we got all the reports?
There's a question about the zoo membership. Is January through December?
That's.
I would,
Oh, yes, it is. You buy it.
It's from when they sign up for their membership, I thought. So
Yeah.
if they sign up on October 1st, then it's good for October 1st through the next
October
year.
1st of that.
Yeah.
so we're not.
And when did we get a sports manager? Did they answer that?
Want to call on?
You're-
So there's
yeah,
a question
whatever
up there, said, how long has the position, have you had the sports tour manager?
I know that there's some messages on virtual, so if anybody wants to actually speak,
Well, don't let Rita speak. I just asked a question.
Yeah.
and if not, then I guess
I can answer it.
I'll go ahead and read the question from Rita Kane Dorhofer. How long has the position or title sports tourism manager been in effect?
The position has been in fact a little over a year. I think it was posted last year. We filled it. When did Sean start? Do you remember? Was it March? Yeah, it was about March. We had it prior to COVID and then it was kind of put on hold because of COVID and then we re-implemented it. And so Sean was in it for just a little bit, a short time, and then he took a position with the state and then it was reposted. And so, yeah, since March.
And that, Rita, are you on?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Juan. Rita Kane Dorhofer, very narrow, unstriped Chicago Cubs mailbox, Mark Road. John, are the toilets inside the fence or outside the fence?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. What?
Toilets, are they inside the fence or outside? That's why I said I'm reading what I have.
Rita, you should know that. It's all inside.
So I have to buy a membership to go to the bathroom at the zoo?
Yes. You have to pay $5.
You can use the porta potty.
No, it's on free day.
Rita, what we do is if there's somebody in the park that has to go, they can come to admissions. We kind of sit there and say, you got to go. Okay, here are the bathrooms. We monitor them because we have seen historically people come in, go to the bathroom, and if we don't monitor them, they got a free pass to the zoo. So your answer is yes and no. But when we look at our designing for our new facilities, I think I've already told you this at another meeting, that my design is to include bathrooms that are both accessible from inside as well as outside the zoo with a wall between them so they can't come into the zoo to the bathroom. So I have heard you and I think it's a great idea and we will do that as our design process allows, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Rita?
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
I like
Bruce, Edmark, are you on the?
For Bruce's question, I think maybe to address the people that rent, and maybe we could do one, have about 100 passes printed up at the water department, one-time use where everyone's a different barcode. And those people can go into the water department, pick up one of those papers, take it there and scan it, because people at the water department recognize it if they kept doing that.
What he said.
We could give them a one-time use pass.
We
We can look at that.
That would cover those people that we were worried about.
Bruce, are you on?
Yeah, that's it too.
Who's Bruce? I don't know Bruce.
Apparently not.
Okay.
Anybody
Good
else?
afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. It's Bruce.
This is Bruce. I was
Okay.
just thinking about all of the apartment complexes around the city, all the rental homes. The barcode system would be a great idea, except it would exclude,
Rental house.
as Steve said earlier,
He said that.
everyone that doesn't pay the water bill for their own property.
Yeah.
Like I said, we can make passes with a specific barcode for one-time use, and then they could go to the water department and pick one up and then take it in and use that. They can show proof of residency in the water department or something.
Yeah.
Can I share something that I did when I was in Virginia? And we worked with all the state parks, and the libraries were given a backpack and a pass to the state park that was good for 4 people. They had to check out pass with their library card, but it would allow 4 people in and check it out, you use it, you check it out, and use it. We have a similar one right now, and that's with the museums. You check out the museum pass with your library card, and you can go to Santa Fe Art Museum. They bring it back. It's fine. I mean, it's pretty easy to do it. We don't charge anything for a library card. You just have to prove that you are who you say you are, to live where you say you live.
That will work too.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that idea. At some point, though, I can sit there and say, am I just going to the library every day to go into the zoo? So how do I track the individual attending the 13 free days?
Is there anybody else on the virtual?
Do a survey and require them to fill out a survey and sign.
Okay, we'll talk that too.
Let's talk about it at our indigent service meeting.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody else on virtual. Is there anything else from the committee?
No.
Anybody else from the public?
November 23rd.
Oh, the meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is November 23rd, obviously the day before Thanksgiving.
Won't be here.
And so I talked to Juanita, and my suggestion would be that if there's no urgent items that we need to address, that we forego the meeting for November.
Problem is, the same thing happens in the following month. And
Yeah.
so that puts anything that we bring before this committee back 2 months,
No, the 21st would be the next meeting in December,
which is real close to.
But it's not the day before, it's not Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we can do December's meeting. I mean,
I'm okay with that.
I'm
I
okay
mean,
with that.
the committee wishes we can cancel the meeting for November. And if there is something that becomes urgent,
We can call a meeting
then we can call a
on
special
Monday or,
whatever,
I won't be here. But either way.
Thank you.
if everybody's in agreement.
We been.
Well, you got that word out.
Is there anything else from the committee? If not, this meeting is adjourned at 5:52. Thank you.
No meeting in November.
All right.